Okay, so again, I'm Eric Holt. I'm the Director of Emergency Services for Calaveras County, your District 1 champion of Cosgrove Creek, Gary Tofanelli, and our CEO, Teresa Kitchuk. So tonight, can everybody hear okay? Am I okay? I don't want to sound like I'm yelling at you. A lot of this is just conversation. We've got a dynamic issue. You guys are all affected, and just to let you know, I live on Vista del Lago, so I'm impacted just as much as you guys are. So we want to come up with solutions. Everybody has seen in the last month the work we've been doing down in there to clear vegetation. We'll talk about that, talk about going forward, what we can do, and then some other information. So what I'll do is just start with the vegetation management that was done this year. So initially, this was under Public Works, and I got involved on how we can kind of take it out of Public Works. It's one of those projects that doesn't really fall into one category because it's not county-owned property. That makes it quite a big struggle, right? So what we're essentially doing is asking the taxpayers of the entire county to fund one small area for a project. And that's his fight, and he's been a huge champion of that, so I appreciate that. But the project now lies within OES. Originally, we contracted for $105,000 to go through and clear the vegetation. And our hope there is, for the most part, that it reduces the volume load within the creek on a natural day. And so when we have a high flow of rain, which, you know, over the last couple of weeks, we've had a couple of days, I'm looking at it. And again, I live right there by the bridge on Vista del Lago, so I'm seeing it every day. When we reduce that volume on a normal flow or a slightly above average flow, we're creating a little more space for the water to travel. And more importantly, you guys see those debris piles, the bridge pylons, or those reeds become this lint trap, basically, of anything that passes. So if somebody up the mountain throws a trash bag in and it comes down in this water and it's turning and it gets caught in there, that's just adding to the problem. And so our best option this year was to get it in there, get it all cleared up, create some room for water and less debris to be caught up, so that hopefully debris that comes can move through. We got done with that first contract, and we weren't at a point, I mean, if you want to talk about that, but I got some phone calls that we needed more work to be done. And so, yeah, so when, he's been a champion, and for me, it is good because it's where I live, and I got to get to work in disasters, of course. So we went back in, we kind of rescoped it, and we added another 45,000 that the board approved. So again, the process of that is we've got one supervisor that is here, and then the other supervisor right there at Vista splits. And so we've got two, but we need to get the votes. This is a 4/5 vote, so we've got to get the whole county kind of bought into spending tax dollars on a property that we don't own as a county. So that's the fight we've been going through, and we were successful. We did get that vegetation cleared out. If you've driven this week, you'll probably see some piles. CAL FIRE is supposed to come in and burn those piles again like you saw before. I know the smoke is somewhat of a nuisance, but I hope you guys will be nice to us in that for a few days. Right now we're delayed. Obviously, we know what's going on in the state, and all resources are down that way. So when they come back up, we'll get them to burn those piles, and we'll kind of finish up for the year. Going into the next phase is more of an open conversation with you guys. I know that there, you know, I read forums, I live in the neighborhood. There is some misnomers that we want to discuss and make sure everybody's at the same level of understanding of what's possible, what's not, what we are going to try to champion, and the timeframes on that. And then I will discuss, so I just met with FEMA yesterday. We've had a couple meetings with them now. We've pulled the map of the geographic area, and there's 2 homes in the entire area that have flood insurance through it's called the National Flood Insurance Program. So I've got some information for you guys on that. I meant to have a thing to fill out, but I gave you all my cards. If you email me, I'll get you this guide after we discuss it on digital format. So The first thing that we'll open the conversation up on is our approach to FEMA. So as we know, it's not county property, it's more state, federal owned, which is a pain. Let me say that in the kindest way possible, right? You add levels of government, it becomes harder to work through bureaucracy. Our big money pot is FEMA getting something granted and awarded to fix that area. So we're looking at anywhere from 20 to $50 million to fix this corridor. That is a huge chunk. We can't compete for that at a state level. We have to compete against every jurisdiction nationwide. And so we've had 2 meetings yesterday. We passed what's called an NOI, Notice of Interest.
Excuse me.
Calaveras Enterprise. So we initially back, December?
It might have been the end of November
Okay.
that we talked to them
So
initially.
we had kind of heard the chatter that every year they kind of do it, but it's Congress dependent, so call those guys. But they're not the quickest at getting budgets, right? So we have to wait on that. So we put an early notice of interest, basically stating to FEMA, we have a project that we want to submit. We go into there, we go through a pre-screening, we pass that, which is great. That is dependent on how many homes, how many people participate in the national flood insurance, the economic level of the community. You'll hear me talk about this disadvantaged community. Again, I live here, so I'm not talking, this is how they rank it, right? So if you were to take Malibu versus Calaveras County, economically, very different, right? And then you add in what is our history. So in recent history, Rich, we've had 3 years out of 5 now that have flooded down there, right?
Yeah.
You've been the chief here the whole time. So in the last 5 years, we've scored better than if we would have tried this 5 years ago. And so we're in a good spot to approach it. We passed the NOI, and yesterday was what's called the NOFO meeting, which is Notice of Funding Opportunity. They come back, they say you passed the screening. The next phase is to submit dollar amounts, basically, and Cal OES will pay for a consultant for us to try to get into the ranking system and help us to score high, okay? So that's gonna go on from now until August. They were very blunt yesterday, and they said, you are looking at from today to completion, 10 years. And I know nobody in this room wants to hear that, to include myself. But the first phase is you don't get anything with FEMA unless you have what's called a shovel-ready project. And you've got to have dollar amounts assigned to it. You have to have engineering studies, environmental hazard impact studies, all sorts of things. Hydrology study, yeah, so they call it the H&H study. The last time it was done was 2005. That was the Corps of Engineers. We can use some of the data, but we still have to get the funding. So we are asking FEMA for $1.2 million. That'll have a county match of 25% as of right now. However, with the reclassification, we're hoping to get that down to 10, but possibly a 0 match for the county. Makes it much easier. As they re-bracketed in the last 5 years here, we do score in a better category where we may not have to do a county match. So that would be hugely beneficial. If we're awarded that next year, we would get $1.2 million to hire an engineer and a consulting firm to do a study. What's possible? It would be very similar to the H&H study back in 2005, but the community has grown since then. Basically, I am not as smart as an engineer, so I can't go to FEMA and say, this is gonna work and this will stop the flooding. It has to be somebody that can do that. So we are talking that first phase, 3 years, as they said. We can move it, and I will move it forward quicker than that by having everything ready to go. So we are playing as though we are gonna get approved first go around, so that the day they say, here's the $1.2 million, I make a phone call and say, start your work, and give them 6 months, maybe 12 months to complete that, and then we can go into phase 2. Once the development of that is done through the engineering study, we can go back and say, An engineer said this will cost us $25 million, and here's the solution that will work. And then we are, quote unquote, a shovel-ready project. That phase, they said 3 to 5 years on that. And so that's where we start getting to that decade long. I will never sugarcoat it. We aren't the deciding in that. The state really isn't. But in that conversation yesterday, if any other funding opportunity comes available, we're allowed to go that route as well. So California Prop 4 this last year passed. There'll be $10 billion within the state for flood mitigation, fire, fuel mitigation, all that. So we're going to go after that money as well. We are going to chase down every avenue to get this done as quickly as we can. And that's the reality of what we're up against. In the decade to come, while we do all that other work, how do we manage this area to reduce the risk to you folks, myself, my kids, okay? So that's what I want to have a conversation about. We invited CCWD, we got Kelly, who is their PIO, Public Affairs, and Damon, who's their operations manager. I asked them to come out. So I know there's been conversations about dredging that creek, and I'm sure that sounds really good. The feasibility of that is super, super low. And the reason being, there's sewage lines, there's water lines that run under the creek. And so how do we go in there with heavy machinery? Otherwise we end up with sewage in your guys' yards instead of, runners.
Find out where they're at and work around them.
So I'm not
They've
getting,
done it in a lot of other communities have these same issues in the past. I was telling Gary earlier when I was young, I lived in Pleasanton, we had the same issue with Pilot Creek running right behind there, and the same thing happened. And eventually they went in and dredged it out and made a flood control canal out of it, basically. But, I don't see that as an option here. I don't see that happening. But, Licensed Fish and Game here, they were the big stickler last time when something was going to get ready to happen. And they're the ones that pretty much shut down the project last time. And they wanted to do
so that's why I didn't.
So the damn frog's going to come back. As soon as you're done, they're going to move back in. They don't care.
Yeah, it's a three-toed salamander and a tri-colored sparrow. Is our
They're coming right back as soon as the project's done. Same thing, I use that as an example because I was familiar with that, and the same thing happened there. They were so worried about all these critters, but after they were done, they all came right back there. And, another thing that I see down there, I live in Washington too, and that beaver dam, those beavers need to get relocated down to the river.
I tried to catch one. I was at the golfing 2 weeks ago.
That creates,
I saw him.
George lives right next to that thing, and his yard gets flooded.
Are you up the hill right there on the
On the
10th?
second house upstream from the Vista Water Bridge, and the lowest house.
Well, hello, neighbor.
Yeah.
I'm just a few houses up from it.
So, Ron and I are both in a Lock Senior Golf Club.
Okay.
There is a fish ladder in that creek. It's a concrete fish ladder that they made them put in when they built the golf course back in the 70s. And on top of that fish ladder is 5 or 6 feet of mud and sticks and rocks and stuff. So maybe if you took the fish ladder out, because there hasn't been a fish in the creek in 15 years. You used to be able to see trout
Really?
swim up that creek, but not anymore. So it's pretty toxic. It's got an inch of green.
Where's that located?
It's halfway up the 9th fairway.
Okay. Usually where my ball ends up then?
Yeah, and you can see it.
Okay.
It's just can't see the concrete anymore because it's covered with sticks, rocks, mud, that kind of stuff. But it's like a dam in there, and
So-
it obviously inhibits flow.
Yeah, I mean, there's some troublesome areas. So we're under, but again, we're a county level government, so we have to abide by a lot of other players in that waterway. I will tell you, the permitting just to go in and do vegetation management is pretty extenuous. They did, they worked hard down there. I will definitely give them that. But
They did a good job.
yeah, the fact remains is we see what $150,000 this year got us, right? Has it changed the riparian corridor where it's not going to flood? No, we know that, right? I'm not saying that there isn't things that are possible, they're just not possible at this point. And I didn't invite the Fish and Wildlife because I want to have a talk with you guys first, and then we can approach them in a professional setting and say what's possible. So a lot of this is brainstorming. They're not going to allow us to go in there with heavy machinery. I can pretty much guarantee that.
Well, that's what the Corps of Engineers recommends. They recommended a channel be dug 5 feet deep and 30 feet wide all the way through there. To lower the bottom of the creek down back to its original, elevation. Right now it's full of cattail roots. And these guys came in with weed eaters and they cut it all off at the water surface.
Right, that's what our permit allows us to do.
Yeah, but they left all the roots still there and you can walk across it now. So it's displaced where the water would normally flow.
Right, so, and that's what I'm saying.
And it did not get removed, only what was above the water level.
Our permit from DWR states exclusively, we can get into the water, but nothing can be clipped. It's water level and above.
Well, that's what we got.
Yeah, and that's literally the work you saw.
But it doesn't do anything.
So the
to help
sediment
the flow.
that's been built up over the decades from the water treatment plant, and there's the reclaimed water that's running down the creek, and all that sediment that's coming in there can't be removed
So-
and bring it back to its natural stream bed? I mean, that doesn't make sense to me, that they can't get in there and do that.
How did they approve to get all Cosgrove Creek widened in front of Gold Creek Estates? I have been here I have lived, it's 40 years now. We had our home built. Who gave the approval to have that house built if you have these problems?
I'll come right back to you on that, okay? So, is it possible? I'm not gonna say no. At this moment in time, no, is that answer? I don't know, is that his phone? If we can get through environmental, through engineering, and they recommend it, then we have a chance to get approval for that. That's years in the making though, right? My office and I know Teresa and Gary here are committed to seeing that work get done to see if we can get there. But where we are at this year, at the beginning of 2025, and the work that we were able to contract, that's what we're limited to currently. And so by all means, we can approach that when we get some planning money. That might have been my phone, so I'm sorry if I looked at you. And yes, I mean, it doesn't happen. The LA River is not really a river, it's a concrete jungle, right? They did it there.
They did it in Sacramento, all around Elk Grove, all the creeks, Laguna Creek, all those up there, flat. They all look like an irrigation canal.
Yeah, so it happens, is my point. And just kind of getting back to you, but it takes years to see that.
Alabama's too small, not enough money coming out of here.
Well, that's the other downside. We are rural, and so we are often overlooked on these projects because we don't have $20 million in our annual budget to say, oh yeah, this year we can kick it to that, right? And so we've got to fight where other large metropolitan areas have it.
Representative or congressman to move to, Calaveras County and do anything we want.
Well,
The state highway entrance to Bear Valley, I mean.
our current vice president's got to relocate, I heard. I'm kidding. Let me come back and I'll come to you. So you were saying Gold Creek
Okay,
Estates?
I have been in La Conchenta down on Grouse Drive
Okay,
for 40 years. We got permits to have a house built. We went and paid for the permits, and they said it was go. For 38 years, my house did not flood. All of my neighbors did, and most of them ended up doing bankruptcy, and I don't have the same neighbors. They rotated a lot in the years I've been there. In 2023, January, my house flooded for the first time. That creek bed had not been cleaned at all for about 7 years. I can't go over there because I'm on the other side of the street. Now, what's the problem with getting that cleaned out? That would have prevented me $17,000, never mind what it would help my neighbors. because they were in much worse shape than I was.
So-
Mine was the least affected house down there. And it cost me $17,000, and if I had went through FEMA, if I'd went through insurance, hey, my whole house would have been molded. We did it ourselves, we got it cleaned out. And, you know, FEMA sounds wonderful. They wouldn't do anything for me. And we went through, since it was a rental house, they decided that we could go through business administration. We didn't get anywhere with them. I pulled it out of my own pocket, just like most of my neighbors. And the ones that went through FEMA and the ones who had flood insurance, they ended up going under too. None of them got their money back. Never mind the deductibles and all that stuff.
I'm definitely not here to advocate for FEMA. I mean, I think we
I'm just
continually.
commenting, you know, you guys, the county gave us the permit to
So,
build a house there. So is the county responsible for giving us that permit to build?
well, let me dissect a little bit. So, when we talk about this, now it's you on this one. Last time it was me. So, you know, there's different flood levels that happen. So we are talking about management of a normal year's flow or slightly elevated. There is nothing that we can do besides emergency preparedness planning that's going to stop an atmospheric river that is 100-year, 1,000-year storm. And so when those things happen,
But they happen every 7 years.
they're not supposed to.
Every 7 years for 40 years, it's happened.
So this is, so if you see at the federal level, I think it's being recognized. But if you look at what just happened in North Carolina, right, and we're gonna see it here in LA, FEMA will come in and say, here's the $750 check. That is designed to get you clothing, and the hygiene essentials for the next couple weeks. That's how they look at it, okay? And I know that's never enough when you've lost everything in life,
Nothing.
but that's really, you know, I mean, the county can't give $750 per homeowner, and sustain,
Well,
so,
$700 doesn't start to cover anything.
not these days. I mean, every time I go to Marval, I think it's half of that, right? And I've got 2 kids, so, look, I know that this is where a community gets together and we say, this is the reality of the situation. The atmospheric rivers that happened in 22 and 23 were not normal years. They were not normal flows, you know. I was gone from Calaveras for 20 years, so I didn't introduce myself well, and one of the ladies here told me I don't do that often. So I graduated, I grew up here in San Andres, graduated from high school, joined the Army, and was gone for 20 years doing a firefighting career. So I've just returned back. Every time I visited in that stretch, it seemed like we were in a drought, and Hogan was at the lowest I've ever seen it, and Maloney's was 200 feet lower than it is now. And now we're in a different cycle of weather. And 3 out of the last 5 years, we've had astronomical rainfall here. So I'm kind of coming back into
The
it.
first year that we built our house, it was completed in January, and they came in to evacuate us in January. They gave us a permit to build that house. We had just moved into it. And every 7 years, just about every 7 years, there's a flood again, and people don't even want to clean the creeks up. I can't do it. It's not on my property. It's not even close to my house. It's across the street from my house.
So we can't really either. And so that's where.
Well,
this
how come you
conversation-
can clean down to Gold Creek?
Well, I don't know what
You can't
happened.
go to Lock and 10 to clean out Lock and 10. That's what I don't understand. Is it the county's too cheap to do that?
No, it's definitely not. I mean, county's spending a lot of money for
They
it.
only cleaned our side that she's talking about this year and last year, that was it. The rest of the time has not been cleaned for many, many, many years. It's always been cleaned on the other side, but not on our side.
So, and that comes from your champion of a supervisor, saying, like, this needs to get done.
You know,
I will say
they're
this.
writing about cleaning it out to Gold Creek. In the paper even.
Well, we
That
did,
doesn't cover everybody.
we did from Highway 12 and 26 all the way down to the confluence where CCW owns their property and they did their property down there. So it has been mitigated for vegetation from Hogan Dam all the way down to the Calaveras River, all the way through. So what you see up here, and
It was
that
done in
hasn't changed.
September, October, wasn't it?
The permit that we had before, and the only permits that we were given for, are only allowed to that because of the golf course. And they kept saying the golf course.
The golf course don't own.
Wait. I'm telling you what I was told, and the reason why they only gave the permit to that point, which is the 10th green end, because that's a commercial property that's owned by, that's what was, and so that's
They don't
our
even
permit.
pay. They don't
When the
pay.
floods came, and I pressed them and continue to press them, we finally got a couple of years ago the ability and the permit to clean all the way down to Silver Rapids Road. We also got in contact with the Corps of Engineers who operates Hogan Dam. And what the issue was, and you saw some relief over the last few years, is that they were not, when the rains came and the heavy rains, they would just release heavy water out of the dam in order to intake coming in. And if you look at that, if you've ever been down there by the CCWD, that water coming down that river when they release that water is higher than Cosgrove Creek trying to flow into it. And so now we've been with them and got them to time their releases when the heavy flow of Cosgrove Creek to allow it to flow in.
So we gotta keep something in mind too, folks, is we don't own the property, and therefore we have to ask permission to be in there and do the vegetation clearing. And if we get told no, we can't do anything either.
What do you mean you don't own the property? Lock and Tenant don't own the property neither.
So the
Lock and
state
Tenant
owns
don't own.
the state and the feds own the water and the creek bed.
Well, how come we're not on top of it then, as far as being able to clean it out? It needs cleaned out every year. It doesn't need cleaned out every 7 or 8 years after the flood.
So that's, I think it's with the Federal Waterway
Yeah, so
Act
we
or something.
have, we have to get a permit from Fish and Wildlife in
Well,
order to
are we
clear that.
pushing to get them every year?
Yes.
So we have a 5-year permit right now.
Right now, we finally got
But the permit is limited on the amount of days that we can actually get into the creek and accomplish any work because of the endangered species that inhabit that creek, which is the salamander.
Three-ton
and
salamander and the tricolored sparrow.
I've never tried, so there's been no flow.
So in order for us to get
There has
in
been flow.
we
So
have
they-
to have a biologist go in there, evaluate whether or not the species are present, and then we can go in and do the work. If a biologist goes in there and determines that those species are present at any time, then we're,
Yeah, so I was, let me, No, there is.
Address that comment right here. We went in to clean it during the time that we could go in to clean it. You say there was no water flow. There was water flow. It's because the Valley Springs PUD, their big lake, they started releasing water down there. And when I got there, I said, there's water flowing right here. What's going on? And we went up and determined what the flow was. So it was hampering a little bit of the cleaning out, so we had to come back a second time because of it. So doesn't occur all the time, but this year it did.
No, this year it did, because we had rain the last couple of years, but before that, with that drought, it was like dry.
It was dry. So most years it's dry.
Yeah.
But
So how does anything survive there when it's dry?
so they do, actually.
don't. I've had that comment.
Apparently
the
the
last time I
salamander-
flooded in 2023 and the water was flooded, I said, there's no species left in there. They're in Linden right now. Everything in Linden. But let us go and do what we need to do. And
So this salamander can burrow for 10 years apparently, and not even come above ground, which after 10 years, we forgot about it and mowed over. But I'm not an EPA guy, I'm not environmental. I spent my life burning woods down, okay, and putting it out. That was my career. But that is the game, folks, and we don't own it. I gotta come to this young lady and then I'll come to you.
Okay,
She's gonna
so
throw
we had a
something.
situation of, and the last time that it flooded pretty bad, which I think was 2023, I'm not sure.
23.
January, right?
January.
Yeah, and it flooded pretty bad. And we had a situation where there's a tree across the creek from us, which is not on our property, that came down, it fell down across the creek.
Okay.
And we're sitting there watching trash cans come down the creek and pile up against this thing. And of course, because it was wet, nobody could do anything,
Right.
and guess what? that tree is still there. It's not across the street anymore, I mean, across the creek anymore. They've pushed it off to the side, but it's there.
So that's why, I mean, again, here's a stack of my cards. If, in those situations, please. So I am, even though this isn't my favorite project in the world that I've ever had, I am glad that it is under OES, okay? Because, one, Rich, when they're out there working and they are getting you out of your homes in boats, they're doing heroic work out there and they're putting their lives on the line. Our job is to respond to a disaster and save lives. And Rich is out there with his guys doing it on the ground. We will then take care of you guys when you're in this building or wherever, getting you warm, getting you dry, making sure you have the necessities. And then we go into the recovery phase after that.
So I do want to say that this year, when they cleaned it out, they trimmed all of the little branches that were
Yeah.
sticking out from the tree. And they're piled on our property there in the back,
Are they really?
and they did not get burned. But,
Oh, that's the stuff that they will come back through and burn.
but they're this big around, that's probably why they didn't do it. Somebody'd have to stay there for a couple of days to watch it burn.
So don't say that again, because our permit only allows 4 inches and below. So if it's
Well, that's
that,
But see,
I didn't
it's
hear
not our
that.
tree,
I
it's
know.
not our tree, it's on our property.
I am trying to give a little levity to the situation. I know this is stressful. I know it's your homes.
So the state's responsible for that tree?
I
You
have
guys
no
call me.
idea who's responsible.
I see it. Here's the. I've walked it.
Not us, it's not our
Walked every
tree.
foot of it. But those are the things that, yeah, send that info to me and I'll see what I can do. You know, then I can make some specifics. One thing that never works in government above our level is generalities.
Okay, so I guess my question mainly to you is it originated in the dirt across the creek from us, and the tree came down. And we have kind of an interesting type of, dirt area there. Anyhow, across the creek is a big high hill that goes up like that, and Hart Vixen is running along up there. And so I assume that property that comes down to the creek belongs to one of those guys that are up there.
Yeah.
I mean,
So what we could do is we could try to see about getting a permit to remove it.
okay,
I can't make the promises. I mean, I've got to go to the.
because that's a big blocker. I mean,
This is on route.
we're on Priscilla Court, which is off of Antonovich.
I know the area, but I would, if you can take a picture, send it to me, I can see what I
Okay.
can do.
Yeah.
That's a specific thing, I can call, Fish and Wildlife, and I can
Because if
call
the
Army
water comes
Corps.
up very high, that thing's gonna start floating in the wrong place.
Yeah, they don't float too well, they're not,
Whatever, but,
yeah, so those specifics, like, please reach out to us, because the challenge being is I've got to go to the Board of Supervisors and ask for money for this project, right, every time that we do. So I'd like to lump these together, go to the board, and let Gary convince 4 others to say, yes, that this is a county-wide problem, meaning everybody that pays taxes in this entire county, it's worthy of committing funds to. And I can't do anything outside of getting that.
So has there been any movement towards trying to get the individual that's kind of responsible for some of these things that are happening to, maybe
Who's that?
Voorhees, he built up all that land in Gold Creek. He built that new development above Gold Creek. They haven't built a house on yet, but when he did that, it changed all the drainage up there. And now people that live on St. Andrews, who never had to worry about flooding, had to move out of their houses last year, a couple years ago. And there's one guy, and still haven't been back, and they had pods in front of their houses for a year and a half.
So is he's a developer? Is that what you
Yeah.
all that
Pieces of
dirt, where did it go? It came down across St.
It's
Andrews
set up in
and
the
down.
creek that you
And
can't
down the
touch.
creek. It's not as deep as it
So
used to
the
be.
problem is, you can find an engineer to approve it, but that's not what we enforce.
So those plans were approved years ago, so he's finishing up phase 3. And he's going by what the map that was approved, and he's kept alive. But if you've ever drove by Gold Creek on the highway, there's a big pile of dirt out front there in front of Gold Creek. He had that piled up on the banks and was forced by Fish and Game and Corps to remove it, and he moved it there and made that big pile. So he was trying to build the banks up at that time,
Big deal, half a house.
and he wasn't allowed to do it.
Do you have a staff?
So but when you build homes in phase 2 or 3 of Gold Creek, it's all paved and terraced, but no houses are there. You're gonna have tile roofs, rain gutters, all kinds of driveways and stuff, and it will run right down that hill at 100 miles an hour and hit the creek. So, and when you pave,
It's a tough one.
like for grocery outlet and the Dollar General and all the other growth in town, you pave that, all that water that would have soaked in or moved slower comes down the creek fast.
It's a really tough one because some engineer is going to say, no, that doesn't contribute, right? And then another engineer will say, yes, it contributes. And so we would get caught in the middle of that. Our best solution is to get funding to create a permit.
Well,
I can tell you what I think
put a
mine,
building moratorium on all new building that's upstream.
but then we kill ourselves on tax, right?
Well-
We have no money to go to and say, can we
But
utilize this money?
meanwhile, we get the flash flood because it's all paved upstream. So you get, how many homes are in that phase 3? Like 95 or something, right?
It's quite a few, I don't know
Yeah,
offhand.
that's an awful lot of roofs. And that is gonna all run straight down that hill and right into the creek.
I hear you. I mean, and I don't disagree with you. But again, like, it's gonna, engineers with big degrees are gonna say, no, that's not
Depends
it.
on who's paying.
Because who wants to build where, right?
That's what's gonna make a difference on what engineer tells you what.
Yeah.
If he's getting paid by you, he's gonna side with the county, say, yeah, we need to do this. If he's getting paid by the developer that wants to keep building, he's gonna come and go, nah, that's not a problem, don't worry about it.
So my goal, I don't want to stop development here. I think that's great for all of us and it gives us, you talk about Pleasanton, right? Big tax money down there, right? So you've got to have an inflow and we have our economic developer sitting here, so
No.
she doesn't want to see that stuff, right? She's working
No, I
hard. So
don't think.
where's the common ground there?
Well,
We
one
gotta
of the
keep-
problems over the decades that I've been here is that, Calaveras has never charged developer fees like anywhere else in the state.
He's kept
And
it
they've shot
all.
themselves in the foot for a number of decades. And now, it's like CCWD, right? I mean, they haven't charged hookup fees, maybe even the Valley Spring fees, I don't know. But I know they didn't charge fees like they charge anywhere else. And now the ratepayers are having to pay for all the upgrades and everything that's going on. It's like
I think that's a
PG,
different meeting. Because I'm
right?
not,
Let the freaking shareholders take it, let the ratepayers go for a little bit.
so here's the thing is I can go anywhere on the map on this globe and say, what's the history here? I can't fix the history, but I can fix the future.
Right.
And
But
so,
you can use the history to judge what needs to be done.
but I can't go recoup money if they
No,
weren't
I
charging us.
know that.
So-
I'm just saying, it's,
Our goal is to design this in a way, I know you guys in this room have probably heard this idea, but there's a property that is available, per se, where we could put a big basin. And on that basin, we can put, if you go down to the Delta, you see this pretty often, right? But we can put a recreational area, playgrounds, walking trails, ball fields that are nice. And we can get FEMA to pay for that. Yeah, we can do all sorts of stuff. So in 10 years, I would love to see it this year, but in 10 years, that could be our goal. And we have a community center that now brings in some tax funds and creates a little bit of economic development. And that's a win-win for us in the future. So that's the goal. We want to do that at that Hogan Dam area, kind of behind the strawberry fields between the backside of Marval and all that. There's 55 acres? Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's 55. Right?
And, I won't name who, but they're gonna give it to, no. So that's our goal. It's there, the property isn't gonna be sold. And that's what we're gonna pitch. It was in the 2005 plan that they thought it could work. We're gonna hone in on that and say, will this work? Do all the hydrology stuff, do all of the 1,000-year, 100-year, 10-year flood model. And if they decide that that works, we have a really good chance to get that done. I think that would be a great thing for the community. We can have plenty of.
50 acres, is that all floodplain?
It's where the convergence of two creeks come in.
You know, Dan?
I'm not sure if it's an actual FEMA recognized portion of the floodplain, there could be part of that property that actually is like in the FEMA designated floodplain, but we all know, I mean, we've seen it flood in the past in the Oak Dam Road Bridge. We all know that's underwater.
So the goal there would be to dig it
actually
30 feet deep.
Excuse me. Have you guys done hydrology studies at all?
It's not.
It's pretty stale, so I think everyone talked about the hydrologic study that was done in the early 2000s. Yeah, I think that's still the document that everybody leans on. However, you know, we did receive FEMA funding to reestablish some, there was a fence there along that property that FEMA paid to reestablish after the floods. And I think, you know, just to reiterate, this is a very complex problem, and we are in concert with county. CCWD is in concert with county. We acknowledge the issue, the challenges, and all the different facets that are incorporated, and we're going to continue to work together with the county to make sure there is some resolution. So, we're kind of, you know, Eric and I talk a lot, and so there's a lot of components you guys are touching upon, of a ton of them, right? And so we consider those all the time. They're challenging issues, and how do we get around each one? And it's going to be, you know, a slow navigation, but it's definitely moving forward, and it's always constantly progressing in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm not going to come in and lie to you. It is, so I did see an updated map that they redo it all the time through satellite imagery. Those two, I think it's Spring Valley Creek, is it?
Spring Valley Creek.
But it's got different, it's Spring Valley and then Cosgrove and Lime, and it all becomes one.
Yeah.
Because those two flood in there, it is what would be considered like overflow,
And that's
basically.
what you're talking about, this catch base.
Yeah, so they do it in the delta. You dig it down 30 feet, 40 feet, whatever the engineer says would work, right? And then you stop the flow downstream in high flow areas. So you've got, I'm not gonna do the math, guys, if I'm even capable of it on paper, but, you know, several millions, tens of millions of gallons can be held there and released slow.
I think it's Bear Creek, and they built soccer.
Yep,
That's what we're talking about.
that's exactly what we're talking about.
Same in Lodi. It's a spillway. It's a spillway when there's, you know, and that to me seems like, you know, the root cause is, you know, upstream, you know, plus what you're talking about, you know, with the, you know, the flow that comes from development, you know, it's part of it. But, you know, just cleaning the creek and making it wider, deeper, whatever, seems like a Band-Aid. Seems like maybe
If we put an alley
having a way to divert the water upstream in a you know, 100-year event or 50-year event, whatever. I mean, obviously what happened 2 years ago is maybe that event, but that seems what I've seen traveling around the state a lot. You know, I see a lot of diversion or diversion tunnels or catch basins, you know, those kinds of things that are upstream that take the pressure off.
Yeah,
water.
we can flood that area. We can just.
But that has to be engineered, right?
Oh,
Right.
100%.
Exactly.
100%.
And after this last week, there's going to be some heavy conversations politically on water storage, water diversion, all sorts of stuff, right? So the climate changes. What we were talking about a month ago and what we're going to talk about a month from now is a whole different game. And we've got to ebb and flow with the politics. We got to, you know, we're a week away from a huge shift in America in politics. Whatever side you're on, it doesn't matter. But the reality is this is a shift, right? And so we've got to stay with that. So Prop 4 just passed. We're going to try to chase down that. And if we can get that, somebody to say, here's $1 million, do the study, and in 2 years, here's 20 million, we'll get it done. But I'm going to give you the worst case scenario all the time and say, right now, we're talking 10 years, okay? There is some stuff, I want to go back to you. There's only 2 people in this entire corridor down here that have national flood insurance program. I know it's not the greatest thing in the world, and I'm not an insurance salesman. But what it does do is if you're sick of it every 7 years, you can actually have FEMA buy you out, and you can do that.
I was gonna say, my house was only flooded once, and that was because the creek hadn't been cleaned out. That would have helped. That would have saved my house. It wouldn't have saved my neighbors across the street, but it would have saved mine.
Right.
But-
I live down here too. I don't want to see my house flood. I got kids that one's condemned right now.
I mean, I'm just saying, I have seen this happen for 40 years. Every 7 years. I mean, I lose neighbors. because they go bankrupt over this. So it's a real problem for people. There's houses across the street from mine that still isn't being lived in 2 years later.
And
We
so
can talk about the, flood insurance and all that stuff. It just doesn't work.
well, I'm gonna give you the other side. Like, if you're sick of this and you don't wanna wait in the community for 10 years, there's two parts to this insurance. The more of you guys that are participating in it, right now, it's an average cost of $700 per year is what the figure I came up with. Nobody in this room wants to hear me say commit $700 to something else. I'm not in control of it. I'm gonna give you the options, okay? You can participate. The more people that participate, the higher we score. There's other things that we can do. So I'm currently reading this. I printed it out and brought it because I was reading it today. But this is the manual on being a designated community, which we are not. I can start that process. And through all of the things in this book, we can start to reduce that annual insurance premium. Up to 70% is the max score. Will we score 70%? No, guys, we don't have the infrastructure yet. But can we do that? Yes. Am I willing to commit the staff time and to get that done for you guys? 100% I will. But do I want to do that if everybody in this room is going to say, I'm not going to participate, I don't want to do that, right? So that's where this community engagement and conversation comes in, okay? The National Flood Insurance Program, I'll send you this, what the tips are, what's the information on it. It's just a quick guide. Reach out to me, my email's on that card, or please come and take one, and I'll send you the link. We'll go through this education piece together on it. That is your way. There's other options that I cannot provide you, but that you can provide yourself through that. They can come in and give you money to raise the foundation of your home and elevate it. 1 foot of difference changes what floodplain you're in and what severity of storm your house can survive. Okay, so that's one option. There's another option within the program where they'll say your home's worth this, here's the money, and they tear down your home. There's that one. The lot's beautiful. I wouldn't purchase it, but it was condemned and somebody will buy that. And what they do with it, maybe they come in and they raise that place 2 feet. But there are options.
I don't know.
And my office, you can call me anytime. I'll help you if you want to go down that way on an individual scale. I will start as a community-wide effort to get FEMA dollars to solve this. And hopefully, my kids are almost grown, but maybe by the time I have grandkids, they'll be playing t-ball down there and I can go and watch them. But there's no quick solution. I don't want you guys leaving this room thinking this problem's solved tonight, by any means.
So what's the timing on getting this $1.2 million achieved?
August of next year, we'll find out if we get awarded it.
Okay, so you've already submitted the,
We went through the NOI, which saying, there's this whispering in the FEMA world that there's gonna be money. And we said, we want part of that money if it comes. Congress sucks at budgeting. I'm sorry about that. Let's hit them up. We passed the NOI phase, now we're in the NOFO phase, where now they say, federal appropriations have happened. I'll come to you, sorry. And this is how much. So I think there's $13 billion that the Biden admin committed towards this one thing, which is building resiliency in community or flood mitigation assistance. We are going with BRIC, which is building resiliencies in community. Okay, the reason we are doing that is we didn't score well on the flood mitigation because of the disadvantaged communities. Most of the Biden admin and the Inflation Reduction Act and all that was on disadvantaged, economically challenged, which in your rural America, you're jumping up and down saying, that's us all day long. We don't have the $1 million homes like Elliot does, but it's tiered. So we were able to say this, basically the 12 and 26 corridor all the way through Moke Hill and up country ties in economically disadvantaged communities. And because this building is one of our primary evacuation centers, because we have 2 major arteries that flow down into the valley and up to the mountains that you guys would have to travel on to evacuate, we can tie that in. So if we build in all of our infrastructure, we score much better. So we went with BRIC. That's the meeting we had yesterday. BRIC is nationally competitive. So we are not doing a regional thing. We're not doing just within the state. We are literally competing against everybody. You think Florida's got some flooding issues, and Georgia and North Carolina, we're going to be competing against them for $13 billion. That's why 1.2, we try to come in as low as we can. And then our hope is that they filter that money down to the low-end projects to get those rolling. When we have to compete for 20, 25, $30 million, it's gonna be tougher. So we're gonna do everything we can to help our scoring. And that's where you guys come in, sign up for insurance if you can. Look at, can I raise my foundation that helps our scoring? All of these things, it's a two-way street. It'd be easy if the county owned the property. They owned the whole creek, and just went in there and said, I don't care about a tricolored sparrow. That's just not the world we live in.
I have one question. The reason I came here tonight
Can I come back to you? That gentleman, I had to go to him, and I'll come right to you.
Is this 25 million would be low.
I've never seen it.
What's that, sir?
I'm talking August of this year or next year?
August 25, we'll find out if we get awarded.
Okay, because you said next year. I wanted to make sure it was 2025 and not 2026.
So, yeah, going back to, once we're awarded, right? So let's say we get to August, they say, hey, you have money.
Right.
You go, cool. There's a 3-year performance window, which means a lot of places, this isn't a high priority. Let's say San Joaquin and San Luis County, they have all sorts of stuff in the Delta, and they may have 50 different projects they're working on. We're not in that, so it's gonna be a high priority for us. We're not gonna take 3 years to get this study done. We're gonna be ready to go immediately. 12 months later, turn around and say, here's our project. So we're gonna try to move that 10-year as close to current as we can, but that's our worst case scenario.
Are we also looking at a watershed then too, where water can be stored?
Let me come back to you. I gotta balance through. Go ahead, sir.
I understand the big picture, the political, all that, what you're talking about right now was good. We're gonna work on it, it's a new thing. But my instance was this tree that came down. This is a tree that's a foot and a half. It was a dam across the creek.
Yeah.
I called, and this is, my question is, who is responsible? That was a dam across that creek that came up onto my property and down into the back of the shed. Took my back fence completely out.
Okay.
So I went down 2 years ago and I called. I started with the planning committee. I got a telephone. I went to 6 different people. I got refers. I went back. I got the phone of the guy I called before. And I finally just gave up. There's nobody responsible for that kind of an incident.
So,
And I'm hearing you got a telephone number, give you a call.
Yeah.
Like, we had the fire department out. Everybody said, yeah, that needs to be removed. But nobody would step up 2 years ago. It's still there. This crew that came through this time, I went back out, the first time we went out, the first 2 years ago,
Yeah.
they didn't want to do it, they didn't want the responsibility of the people. I don't know what the deal was that. This guy said, okay, we'll try to do it. He hacked away at it, did a much better job. And the water from the thing has moved it so it's more straight,
understood.
so it's flowing a lot better. But I could not find anybody that would step up and say, yeah, that's my job. That's the problem right now for incidents like that. The big picture, yeah, that takes some work. I understand that. I've been in that world. But when something like that happens, anybody in their right mind would say, we need to get that thing out of there.
So I don't know 2 years ago. I would say our CEO has moved that under me within the last 3 months, and so now you call me, and that's why I want to give you. And then I'll have those specifics.
In the past, that's been the big problem. Nobody would step up. I
And
mean,
if he'll cover his ears for saying, you can always call your supervisor.
Call me or call Ben. One of the two.
So
Nobody gave me your
Person.
number.
What's bad about that tree too is I felt bad because down on, what was the road that everybody got flooded? Grouse.
Grouse.
Grouse? That may not have happened if this tree wasn't backing everything up,
I want
That's
to
like-
keep the meeting to the big one. Call me tomorrow.
Okay.
Call me tomorrow. And I'll come out, I'll come look at it, and we'll see what we can
We
start
need some
doing.
firewood.
I haven't heard about it, but now that I have, I don't, I've never in my career heard of problems and not.
We took care of the one, that by St. Andrews. That one we got right on, because I was aware of it, knew about it. This is the first time I've even heard about this, and maybe because it's
My
further
point was,
down.
I started out with the planning, but they did not want to have anything to do with it.
I think that your fire chief is a life safety risk.
They,
Oh, he came out, he was really good. I mean, but there was too much water in there, they couldn't get in there and cut it. There wasn't anything they could do at that time.
Our,
You know, that was the big problem.
The stump is still there by St.
The
Anthony's.
trunk.
Is it that big?
This is
as big
a
as that?
huge trunk, it's like
Yeah.
this big around.
Oh, this trunk
It's a
is a
big
big
tree.
it's that one?
No, not that one.
Is that gonna be removed?
Oh, that one.
my point was,
I'll come to you in just a second. So our workaround is always life safety. If there's a threat to life,
Yeah,
permitting and stuff gets changed, okay? I'll leave it at that. Let me come to her and then I'll come to you, okay? Go ahead, ma'am. You said about the watershed.
Is it, if they get this money, is it going to be another watershed that can be utilized?
What do you mean by that? Let me get specific.
Okay, you're talking about the three creeks coming together and you're talking about millions of dollars here.
Yeah.
Could it be used for another area for water for California?
So that's part of the Prop 4 money is recharging. So we are gonna look at, we've had some conversations about that. How do we pipe that? That's another project, and that is a possible funding source that we can go after.
Potentially.
That's what I'm talking about, maybe it's another way to get this done is for the use of the water.
So the project we're talking about is building a T-Rex sized bathtub, okay? That you can just fill, and we stop all of that, the flood waters, the high flow, not anything above normal. We trap it and we divert it into the huge bathtub. And when the rain stops, then we slowly let it out. That stops the life safety flooding, okay, where your homes are getting flooded.
Michigan should be with that because that would keep the flow of the water for the.
Hey, I hope to. Look, we are on the same page, folks.
We're always gonna have another Comanche.
But, no, we're not gonna create another lake there, but a temporary for the week while the high flow, right? But there is, Prop 4, there's a lot of push to recharge the aquifers. And so there is some conversations happening, and if we can do that, then potentially. But again, that's not my expertise, folks. I've been a lifesaver for my career and, stopped fires from burning. And so I'm
Yeah, I just wanted
gonna defer to the
just
guy.
highlight something that's really high level at this point, but we are involved in a Calaveras River watershed resiliency study that looks at using surface water to provide groundwater storage because this part of the county is in a managed aquifer. So we're in the East San Joaquin subbasin here for groundwater, and it's a critically overdrafted subbasin. And so you all here in this area are the recharge area for the folks in Stockton and
Yeah,
down the
no.
valley.
Is
And
this
so-
the cave-like things you were talking about underground that's gonna be
Yes,
stored?
exactly. So there's the underground water storage essentially
Has that
exists
happened
here.
yet?
Excuse
Has
me?
that happened yet?
So we actually are participating in conversations now. So the Department of Water Resources went through a 2-year assessment of this watershed, the Calaveras River watershed, kind of overlaying the groundwater supply. And now what we're doing, we're in concert with Stockton East. So Stockton East Water District is actually the lead on the project, but we're working together with them to identify opportunities
You've
for
been talking
groundwater.
about this for years, haven't you?
It's, I believe so. But
Speed of government.
But what's really interesting is, you're talking about surface water storage, right? So Hogan, so many conversations about why is Hogan so empty already? Well, it's flood mitigation, right? But what are we gonna do with that flood water when the next giant storm comes? We better get ready. Well, now what we're looking at is, rather than dump a bunch of water down into the ocean, let's find ways to charge the aquifer here. And if we can charge the aquifer here for critically overdrafted friends in the valley, that provides some skin in the game for their ability to participate in projects up here. And so to your point, there may be an opportunity here to look at some sort of, when you're collecting an atmospheric river storm, how are you collecting it? And where are you putting it? Are you just punch it right into the ground? Is it potentially contaminated? What are we gonna do? So we're in the midst of all of that right now. And so we should, the goal is to come up with some projects at the end of this study. And then the next challenge will be, how could we implement these projects?
And that's gonna really heat up after LA, okay? Those conversations and those studies are really going to heat up. We just wanna take advantage of it. for our project, so.
Oh, Gary mentioned the tree stump up there on Highway 26 in St. Andrews. Is anybody gonna get rid of that?
I didn't hear your question, I'm
Tree
sorry.
stump at St. Andrews by the esthetician where we parked that one on the backside?
The huge tree stump.
The huge tree stump, yeah, and I think I had was it you I had a conversation with? No. What are we gonna do with that tree stump?
Can you get it out of there?
Eventually, we will get it out of there. I tried to get Cal Fire to burn it, but it would take more than one day for them
Oh,
to
yeah,
burn
yeah,
it. So we're thinking about sawing it up and taking it out piece by piece because it's very large and huge. So
Well, yeah, the tree fell on my parking lot.
was your parking
And,
lot?
and across
And
across
across-
Highway 26. So Caltrans came in and got it off of Highway 26.
Correct.
And then scavengers came and, can we have that wood? Can we have that wood?
We're
Sure, come
looking
get
to
it.
get
We'll
rid of it.
clean up afterwards.
We are looking to get rid of that stump, it'll be taken care of.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it would move if there was
Well,
floodwater.
we moved it because when it fell, it was last year, it could have fell into the creek.
No, but I'm saying if floodwaters came across Highway 26, which is what, the floodwaters come across Highway
Mhm,
26,
yeah.
that's what gets me. Can that tree won't move, its stump won't move.
That ain't moving.
It's not going anywhere, right?
You could hit that with a big rig and it's not gonna move.
No, but it was in a position where it could have rolled down into the creek.
Right.
And so we moved it, and it was very difficult to move with big pieces of equipment that we got there. But it needs to be cut up somehow and removed, but I'm working on to get it removed.
So how did you get to it? I mean, it's,
He pointed.
Through the parking lot there. It's the only way we could.
So we've had a lot of trees fall over all along the creek. What happens is the water gets so high, it erodes their roots.
well,
And I had a big one
saturated.
on July 4th, had a bunch of people over, and we were having breakfast, and it fell across the creek right outside my kitchen window.
Wow.
A giant, big giant one. But if you go down that 9th fairway, you could see a lot of
So
trees
it's,
that are either down or, leaning like this, that are gonna go any time. But the whole reason that those 100-year, 200-year-old oak trees are dying is because the water level is so high, it's eroding all their roots out. And they can't survive, they fall over. So
there is quite a bit up above the Vista Bridge, and I golf there all the time, and I'm always finding balls over there. I tend to
Trees
draw that way,
falling.
but,
I think it gets back to the fact that that creek has filled up with so much sediment over the years because of all the housing going on around it now.
yeah.
People's fertilizers and washing down their driveways and the dirt movements and the treatment plant, all that reclaimed water goes in there, so you got sediment from that. And that creek has probably got 4 feet of sediment
So,
that aren't natural, that could be cleaned up down to the natural stream bed again, and that would
So-
alleviate a lot of it.
I'm with you, but I also will disagree that in those high flows, when that was real turbulent in there, it should have flushed a lot of that. I walked it with him, we talked about that with the permit, where we get the permit from, because they can both talk. My first thing was that spider web of trees that kind of ponded up above the deep beaver dam. And then you've got the beaver dam, and then you've got these pylons for the bridges. That is all stuff as it pushes. You were just talking about the weight of water, 9 pounds per gallon times 10 million gallons flowing with velocity will move some stuff. So,
And that's part of the problem too over the course of the years is the way the bridges were designed, especially St. Andrews with the pillars. Once that stuff starts flowing down there and the trees fall and the branches break off because of the water, it just acts as a dam of those bridges. And we've cleaned out so many times those bridges trying to keep it clear. And all of that builds up.
So let's take out the fish ladder,
Yeah.
because what you call the beaver dam, it has a concrete base.
yeah, I've seen it down there what you're talking
You need to get
about.
that out of there.
But I don't think that's the full scale of Cosgrove's problem, but
Can we eliminate St. Andrews Bridge?
how are we gonna get in and out of there? Remember, my side is life saving.
Just the 2 houses in. And I'd be more than glad to drive all the way through and out to Vista Lobby, just to eliminate the speeders that go down.
Yeah, it's crazy. We park in, they parking lot. And every time I'm pulling out of there, they're pretty quick. So, no, I can't because my main priority is evacuating people and things, and that's a main route. So I'm gonna have to turn you down on that one. But kindly. So one
Evacuation, we couldn't even go that way though.
through St. Andrews.
When Buzz
Well, in a
lived
wildfire. you
When
could.
Buzz lived there, he said, when he originally was there, there was no bridge.
No bridges there.
So if we had the other side is, I mean, we had that small fire. Cal Fire is amazing, and the way that they do aircraft here is great. We were lucky this last year. We didn't have anything. We did have multiple starts on just down the road on Vista on that backside. I'm trying to think of the road down there, but that could have easily. I mean, we were just. I was here 3 weeks, and then Arrow fire happened, and I went, "Wow, fires are really moving fast here." So living there, I mean, we evacuated 5,000 for Arrow and the logistical nightmare that was. Now multiply that to lock and tenant, right? 10,000 people with one main road going either direction, okay? So the logistics of that, I hear you on daily traffic, but if I told all of you to stand up and get out of this room in the next 10 seconds, or you're in danger, everybody's gonna pile at that door and there's gonna be injuries. That's just how it works. Right? Some will be smart and run that way. Okay, but that's how it works. So there's a lot of things we can do when it comes to evacuation, but we would have directional flow and 2 lanes are going out and get out of here and nobody's kind of cross traffic.
They were both flooded that we couldn't get out on either one.
And that's where Rich came in. I mean, their guys did great work on the boats and there's just, look, there's no stopping these things. They happen. Earthquake can happen tomorrow, flood, fire. It's the way of the world. And
This is preventable though.
It's not though. We could do $100 million worth of work and then all of a sudden we get a 1,000-year flood. I mean, I don't know what your religious beliefs are, but some say that the whole world could at one point. There's always going to be natural disasters that are above anything that anyone's ever seen before.
Yeah, but this though is on a regular.
Well, again, 23 and 23 were freak storms in the state. They went to federal disaster level, and that's not something that's common.
Well, it's true that it's all, not all of it, but a good part of the problem in that creek is caused by man. It is. It's because of the fertilizers on the lawns and the gardens and the bushes and everything else gets in that creek. And the vegetation just goes crazy in there. It never used to be like that. You have a few oak trees and a couple little brush things here and there, but you never had the tules and all the underbrush never grew like it does in there now. And that's a big cause of why there's so much vegetation in that creek at this point.
Well, going back to, I hear you, but I'm not allowed to go in there and do it. I gotta get a
Well, I understand all that.
Specifically says if you disturb dirt.
I'll come back to you.
Go through all this
Do we
process,
actually have,
revegetated.
or do
but
you have a
certain
report from Fish and Game stating that we can't go back to, like these people said, to the original 4 feet? Because I've heard from other people who've lived here 40 years that yes, Fish and Game had approved it. So do you actually have a piece of paper that you can share with us and show it shares what you asked for and what the Fish and Game said that we could or could not do?
I can give you our permit.
We can give you your permit,
It's
specifically states, if you pull a weed out by the roots, you have to replace all of that and only certain vegetation that's natural to that, and it has to be replaced. You can't disturb any of the dirt at all.
So that's what the report says?
Yeah, we can't even go in there.
So you can share that with us, put it on your webpage or somewhere I can see it?
Please email, I'll email it to you. I mean, it's.
Yeah. And the problem is we're in 2024, we're not 1981. There's so many things and regulations that has to do with a species. They've overtaken us in our homes, but what we can and can't do. And so, yes, they've said specifically in a permit, you'll see it, you go down to, I think it's D or E section of it, where it says what you can and can't do. You can only this far above the ground, when you weed eat out everything, You can't disturb any of it. It says the size of the tree, so a lot of these things, maybe they were thinking when the tree fell, it was bigger than 4 inches. It goes on and on and on. The big things that you can and can't do. If you do go into the water, you have to sanitize your boots every single day you go in there. You have to wash them. It just goes on and on and on and on about. And your equipment, you have to sanitize your equipment every day.
Because they were talking about that we were gonna be able to dredge, so you did not get permission to
Who
do that.
was talking about
Yeah, I
dredging?
guess that-
It's-
That was
It depends on who.
Recommends
Huh?
that.
Army Corps.
Army Corps stuff.
The Army
So-
Corps of Engineers recommends spreading.
We got, hold on guys, we gotta, only one person at a time, please. Just so that I can answer everybody. So Army Corps would have the authority to do so. Now, are they gonna pay for it? Who knows, right? But they're at the federal level. They may have proposed dredging. Like I said, there was the 05, I think it was published 08. You know, and then you had an economic collapse and all sorts of things.
They came up with 5 things when I first came on the board in 2009. We were with CCWD and the Corps of Engineers and meeting there monthly for a project to clean this creek out. Then disaster happened with the economics, and we had the depression and everything. It was costing us over, I think we paid at that point $250,000. And we didn't have the money and the board didn't approve to go forward. So Corps finished it on their own. And there were 5 projects that they said that were viable for that creek. None of them were dredging. A lot of them were big basins like he's talking about and other things to do. And then they washed their hands of it and they said they weren't big enough projects for them to get involved in. So they weren't going to pay any money to do any of the projects they came up with. And that information is public also. I think some of the letters and the editor may be involved in some of what that has to say. But that was their projects, and they were wanting to do those projects, but none of them, if I recall, any of the 5 projects that they had was dredging that creek out. And during that time, the hydrologists were saying that that's not a permanent fix, like somebody had said in here, because over a period of time, the sediment will build back up.
Sure.
So you would have to continue to do that amount of money. And then I think during that study, the Corps was saying that if they went in and used some equipment, they would only have a couple of areas that they could enter into it, and they would have to bring all the dirt to trucks up above. And as the further they go down, the further they have to bring it and take the trucks, and then they have to design where that fill was going to go, that sediment was going to go. They won't allow it to go back on the creek and the banks or anywhere else. Again, that's that big pile of dirt you see there out Gold Creek. He tried to do that. But that's been back again in 2009 and 2010. They can go in, the Corps of Engineers, because they're federal government and it's federal waterways, they can go in and do anything they want. Problem is them trying to tell, they won't allow us to go in and do anything other than what they decide they want to let us do. And I've been doing this for years, believe me. I've tried everything. I've met with them a number of times. We fishing game because of the species and they're adding to them. And it's all habitat all the way from the highway to the back of your fences. If you live on St. Andrews, that's all habitat, every bit of it. Even though the creek bed is a certain area going down through there, that they consider that whole thing habitat. And once they consider that all habitat,
Gary, I'm sorry to interrupt you. How does that justify, I mean, I live on St. Andrews.
I know, I'm aware of it.
You know me. And my neighbors across the street got hit severely to the point where they were so stressed with contractors trying to fix their house, living somewhere else. I mean, it was a disaster for them. It was a disaster for me. I only got 2 inches of water, however, it was horrible.
I understand.
For them. And now she's gone. She's dead because of things that had happened. She couldn't take it. So you know, how do you justify these, you know, the sound, what is it, the frogs?
The three
I
tricks.
I'm sorry, I don't buy that.
But
That's political, right? The smelt right now, the little fish,
But how do
is
you,
causing LA to
how
burn.
do you prioritize that over people's lives?
That's what they're saying politically. Right,
So-
but that's what we have to fight.
You got,
Hold on, guys, let me go back to this lady, let me answer. I'll come back to you, and then her.
You needed to put that out there, I'm sorry.
I pulled the permit up. Is there a specific question you had in it I can answer tonight,
I
or do
just
you want
want
me
to
to
look
just email?
at it,
Okay,
so. I
if
can-
eholt@calaverascounty.gov, I'll shoot it over to you,
It's
okay?
on,
Or here, it's on my card if you
it's on
want.
the
Yeah, I
card,
got the
right?
card.
Yeah, so please, I'll send it to you.
Very good, Bob.
You, ma'am, go ahead.
Well, I want to piggyback on that. I live on Grouse. I
Okay.
had, my whole house had to be gutted and I was out of it until October
Okay,
of that year. I've got 2 mortgages now on my house because FEMA didn't help. All they do is give you a loan through
Yeah.
SBA, right? So now I have 2 mortgages.
Yeah.
And these stupid frogs or whatever, I mean, that doesn't matter. They're gonna be gone anyway when that water comes through. Everything got wiped out. I mean, everything. There was so much stuff going in there.
Point that out.
Look, I could give you my personal feelings on these things, but they hold no weight, right? This is an EPA level thing. They're the ones that are gonna go and say, this is an endangered, this is near extinction, this is, and we have to respect that. There's no working around it. Unless a president or a Congress takes this initiative, which again, the conversation's gonna start. There will be different conversations, right? But if you watch the political news this week, the smelt and the brining of the ocean is who's being blamed for LA's water. Is that true? There's a difference of opinion even in this room, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
When law is written, guys, there's nothing. And again, we've got to keep it into context. The county doesn't own the property, and any solution that we want to do, you've got 20% of a decision made here. We've got to convince 60% other to get any dollars to throw at this.
Who do we gotta write? Because
Well-
I'm willing to write. I'm
So-
willing to go. I mean.
Yeah, I would say in a positive manner, champion this project for us. Contact me when you have trees so that I can go to our local supervisors and the CEO and say, hey, I need some money for this project. And I can go in front of the board and ask for it. We were successful twice. Yeah, I was iffy. I was very nervous when we had to go back for the 40, okay? Because we had already committed 105. And understand that's coming out of your tax money countywide. So people that don't even live down here are contributing to saving your homes. But when we talk about this project that we're gonna go for, you're talking $300,000 match currently that the county residents are gonna pay for. And then if we go to a $20 million project, we're looking at, can we ask the county for $5 million out of tax funds to save this area? So in a positive way, advocate for it, champion it, but let's not get into the, where people tune out because it's negative. That's never worked in any situation I've done. Again, there are options. You can ask people to buy you out. You can, I do want to get an answer from those in this room, and it's going to go beyond that. But are you guys willing to look into this and have me work on designating our community for a reduction? It's going to be a lot of work. If you guys aren't interested, I'll spend my energy still positively for you guys, but I won't focus on this. So what are you guys' thoughts on
What
that?
exactly is it? I'm not quite sure.
So the National Flood Insurance Program, it sounds like were you on that by chance? When your house flooded on Grouse?
No, I was forced into some stupid insurance company.
So this is, unfortunately, it's really bad if you have a flood and then you go for it, right? Beforehand, they can't deny you, but if you have this federal, it's a federal cost share across the country. Again, it's about $700 a year.
So I paid $2,100, and
Yeah, I was
that's
going to
just,
say.
that's just for the
much more
building,
for
not
me.
content.
This is different. This is just for floods. You're
That's
calling.
what mine
My flood insurance is almost $6,000 a year.
is. Yeah. I don't.
So again,
$100 even.
the other half of this is this coordinator. So it's
Because of the claim.
National Flood Insurance Community Rating System. I I know some of you, I've talked about ISO when we were down Calco, right? We talked about ISO a lot. It's very similar to that, okay? We're in California, it's gonna be really, really hard for insurance. It's gonna get worse, okay? What I can do, what my office can do, is enroll to be one of the communities that is signed up for this. And then I can do a lot of work through this manual to get that rate reduced. If you guys are interested in that, I will do that. If you guys are not interested in it, then I'll go other routes to try to help.
Yeah, that'll help. Is that on top of FEMA?
So,
I mean, if I have FEMA, an already flood insurance.
so that's national flood. You might be one of the 2 people in the
Well,
county.
everybody in my neighborhood's got it. If you have a mortgage, you're required to have it.
Oh, yeah.
Flood zone.
So there might be some educational piece of like, are we doing the right one? Because when the Cal OES person that went through this, they pulled the area and their data, and they said, there's 2 homeowners in that area. And that hurts us on the scoring, the probabilities, but whatever you feel about insurance, let's remove a little bit, because it might be the only path, okay? I know, especially in California, we don't have great experience with it, and now you've got the fair plan and all this stuff. It sucks. It just sucks, but we have to accept that right now. From my position, I can assist in helping to reduce the cost. It's up to 70%. I'm not gonna get you to 70% reduction on flood. But if I can get you 15 or 20, are you happy with that? Is that what you want me to do as somebody that's funded by tax dollars? I'll do that for you. But it's gonna take participation. And so you came a little late. Please take my card, email me, and I'll send you this packet. I just printed it out to show you. And by all means, if somebody wants to look at it right now and flip through it, here you go.
If you're not in a flood zone, which we aren't, even though the creek is down there, our house is up much higher.
Okay.
And we had to do a flood study when we built the house, and they said that we were not in a flood zone.
Okay.
So, I mean, would we?
In what flood plain? Is it an annual? Is it a 5-year, 10-year? Is your property floodable? That's probably the one.
Just the fence. I mean, we've lost fence several times, and we just pay for it ourselves.
So, and somebody, you just said it, like if you have a federally backed mortgage, which most of us aren't super wealthy and have, you're required to have some form of it, but there may be people, I know, so when I was in Colorado, we were having some issues and I just went with the cheapest that I could find that actually insured me. We are gonna run into that, where like, State Farm is moving out, right? They're State Farm, but they're not gonna be State of California anymore. We gotta make sure that, and that's where the education comes in. Is the insurance that you're paying for under this umbrella that FEMA recognizes, is it gonna cover you? Does it give you the option to say, hey, I'm sick of this 7-year cycle. I'm gonna just sell my home and have them buy me out, and I'm gonna move down the road, or I'm gonna go after them and have them help me raise the elevation, okay? There's options, but it's a community-wide effort that we'll do together. That's of what I have control over and influence over, that's what we can do, and the rest I'll work hard to find solutions, but.
So what is the $700 again?
That's what they said the national average is for that insurance.
Oh, right. I am paying $2,100 a year,
Okay.
and that's just for the building.
For
No
the,
content.
for the business owner? Or your
For the
private?
building.
Okay.
I own the building, I don't.
So maybe what I can do is get a couple of you to give me your insurance policy, and I can do some digging.
Because I think what you have here is you have a lot of people here that are near Cosgrove Creek, but they're not within the flood zone, like Grouse Drive and St. Andrews and 26, or the mobile home park.
Gotcha.
They're far enough away to where they still have high flood insurance, but they're not in the flood zone. And then you've got people like us and them, Helen, and
that are in the basin
right behind us, that are living right on Grouse Drive, that, sees that water come across the street, more than 7 years, more often than 7 years.
Yeah.
We are the ones who are paying $6,000 for flood insurance per year.
Yeah.
And if that's gonna get us a lower rate, then I'm all for it.
That's what I need to hear
You
from
know.
you guys, and I'll do it. Tomorrow, I'll literally call them and say, hey, how do we get enrolled? And then it's a process of like public information and flood mapping.
Do you have to have a certain amount of people doing it, or just the people that like him that have the higher?
No, we are in a repetitive, high-risk flood zone
Yeah.
along Cosgrove, and I would recommend that everybody has it.
Okay, when we purchased the house, they said it wasn't in a flood zone.
Yeah.
But remember, that's people trying to sell you a
The
home.
realtor should let you know that.
We
never
looked at
flooded
it.
before.
It was even in the paperwork.
Yeah, so I will say, in my experience, and more on the fire side, I used to help people get fire insurance all the time that got kicked off, right? Remember, those people that are getting you those documents are making money off selling you that. And so they may not be the best.
I realize that.
Um,
I realize that when we looked at the county paperwork,
I do.
it said it wasn't in a flood zone.
Right.
Okay? So who are we supposed to believe?
I would
All right?
contact our office and let us see what we can come up with. Because one, I know the maps I looked at from 5 years ago are different than the maps that are, and they're the flood plain maps, okay? And so I just looked at one today. That was different than one that was 3 years old. Okay, so it does change.
I had
They
to have.
revised it.
Right, because you may get,
That's correct.
this area for the last 100 years may not have had
I
huge
sit-
events and then boom, boom. and
I
it all-
sit on St. Andrews. I'm I'm second house in from the creek.
Okay.
Okay? She's the third house in from the creek. Okay? Everything else flooded around us this year. We flooded
That's
too.
because we're built up.
Right, we were built
Yes,
up and they
that's
said
right.
we were out of the flood zone. All right, so.
Yeah,
now-
but there's people that are 100 feet up above the Calaveras River that say I'm not in the flood zone, and then Hogan Dam ruptures, which is, in my world, that's a possibility.
Okay, well, that's,
Yeah.
And
yeah, you
then
know,
all day long,
that's all a possibility. All I'm
Right.
saying is, I spent my money. They told me that it wasn't there, it wasn't a problem,
okay?
and now it is. So something needs to get done. Okay, and I only worked for 10 years.
We didn't flood in.
Okay?
What was that
That's
last
not the That's not the game I play. All right? I don't wait for 10 years to get things done.
Well,
All right?
I don't need
That's
it.
right. It'll go on the market. The hell with it. Somebody else can have it. You know, and you tell me FEMA's gonna buy it for 50 cents on the dollar? No.
No, so that is a program within the
Well, I
National
know.
Flood Insurance.
Yeah, the program, the government will take my house. That's basically what they'll do. Okay? Here's a little bit of money, be happy, buy. I'm not playing that game either.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something I want to do in my house, right? Again, we sit here.
I'll trade you houses.
We sit in
Want
this.
to trade?
I'm not much farther up the road.
I know you're not.
So we sit here with that commonality, right? But I can't give you the answer. I don't write FEMA's.
I know you can't give me the answer, but somebody's gonna have to.
I will take a call and consult you and get you the best answers I can.
I appreciate it.
I do know that FEMA sucks at what they do for the most part, but
You
they
don't
are
have to
our
tell me,
source.
I dealt with them for what, a half a year or more?
Yeah, I mean, I got 22 years in the fire service where,
No.
you know, every major disaster I've been on, they come in. We don't like them, but
Right.
guess what? There's nothing else. I mean,
Yes, I understand. Okay, I understand. I'm not putting it all on you, okay?
understood.
I'm just frustrated with the whole business, with all the rest of this crap that's going on, okay? It's time something got done,
I think,
all right?
I think.
You got people here, people here that are losing their houses. I know, I ride my bike over Grouse all the time. I look at these houses, I'm like, oh my God,
My neighbors lost their house.
exactly.
And my other neighbor, she's in a reverse mortgage. This is the second time it's flooded. She's 80-something years old. You know, it's like, this is,
So this, I think, again, this, my best friend grew up here, but he just retired out of the Army, he lives in Georgia. He had a tree fall right down on his house, and then FEMA told him he didn't get $750, and he's like, okay, he walked away from it, right? It's not the greatest situation, but FEMA just screwed up. hurricanes, they're gonna screw up California and LA. That's what's gonna happen, guys. And so, by all means, approach your congressman, write letters, you know, especially if you've got a story to tell. That's the only way that we see that. But none of us in this room have the power individually to call and say, I'm pissed off about this, and it's not adequate. But the reality is, I think everybody in this room will agree, it's inadequate.
I took it to the news 4 times. I've written the Army Corps of Engineers multiple times. They contacted me back once
That's
and said that our county hadn't filed a permit yet. This is a while back, right? But yeah, no, I'm not stopping. I'm not done because I moved into my place not knowing that I was in a flood zone. Okay, because I too got lied to, and then I'm in a major flood zone. You know, I find out from my neighbor that this is the second time that she's flooded.
So what I can provide you guys, in that whole explanation, I am a Californian, born in Calaveras, born and bred, and I'm back, and you know, I will do my job. This is home for me, and it was a long journey to get back. I will give you that individual time if you call me, and I will do everything that I can to get you those answers and to set you up. And if somebody tells you that there's a permit that they didn't file, I'll be right there to say, okay, then what's the paper if we didn't do it? And oh, you're wrong or you're right? And try to help you get along. That's the best that I can provide you as an individual homeowner. But rest assured, if a disaster strikes, we'll be there supporting your every need, you know, for evacuation and saving your life. And then we'll get to the recovery center. I mean, Butte Fire is still being recovered from, guys. That's the cycle, and I know nobody likes the 10-year thing, but like I started this meeting with, I'm gonna give you it as it is, and that's the worst case, and we're gonna try to do what we can. By all means, you all have my info. This is my project now to manage. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not gonna give you false answers, and I'm gonna continue the work. If you have questions like a tree, or a permit, or insurance questions, reach out to me, and we'll do that, and collectively, I want you guys to look at this. I'm not gonna tell you to do it. I'm not gonna tell you what to do, and I will do this. Okay? I will work on us getting reduced costs and being one of the communities. Calaveras County, Valley Springs, I think the closest is Pleasanton, actually. That is a partner. It's a new thing.
This is reduced costs on flood insurance
Yes.
and reduced on household insurance.
This specifically is flood.
Well, that's the thing too that people don't realize, when they have flood insurance and they're gonna get paid to have their house redone, you said FEMA will buy your house. Well, those insurance, if you wanna move, they won't give you the money to fix your house.
So there's
You have to fix your house.
under the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, there is a program to say, hey, I'm in a high severity, my house is flood, I'm sick of this, buy me out.
Right.
And then FEMA is supposed to now change the inundation maps, and they're supposed to say, nobody can live here, it's a nice park, you've gotten paid and you've built your house somewhere else. There's also a program that you collectively come in and say, hey, we all live on grouse, all of our houses have flooded 5 times in the last 10 years, we need to lift our foundations. And then they come in with grant money and they do that. But that is stuff that has to be from the homeowner level that the county government cannot do. And so I want you to look at it, I want you to get your questions to me, and I will try to reduce the cost the best that I can. And then we will continue the work of all this other stuff we've discussed.
I think the important part about that is this is how I ended up with 2 mortgages, okay? Make sure when you're getting that FEMA insurance that it's gonna cover more than just what you owe on your house or whatever. It cost me more to fix my house than it did when I bought it, you know? So, you really got, like, that's one thing that we would have to really look into is if they're gonna be paying you FEMA's 50 cents on the dollar, you know, to fix it with that insurance, because then it's worth me paying $6,000 a year. You know?
So, and insurance is a game, you're right. And some of you may have insurance plans that aren't under this umbrella. It's not FEMA directly that's insurance. They write the standards that are required, and then there are, I went through the list. I mean, there's a list on the FEMA website. Is this company, is your plan qualified under this? And so this is a good chance to just get educated on it, call your insurance, say, are you under the NFIP? Because if it happens again and you're like, F this,
There's not a lot that are in this area, or that will cover this area that are on there, because I did do that right after we had flooded. Because I knew I needed to find new insurance. Before I could get the SBA loan, I had to find new insurance, right? So.
Insane. I'm so sorry. I mean, and
I could tell you for days the frustration behind FEMA. They did some major stuff, but I volunteered out at the fairgrounds whenever FEMA was out there. And I was talking to some FEMA people, and they say that they're told to automatically deny people, and that you have to appeal it.
Oh, I had to fight hard.
Yeah?
yeah. Again, it's always going to be an ugly. Even if you were like, hey, I'm done with this. How do you think that they price that?
Yeah.
They price that as that I'm sick of this, like he was saying. You know, it may be. But again, that's nothing that I can have influence on. And the situation is what the situation is.
So explain to me again this 70%. You said 70% of the residents that are in the floodplain, or all residents in the development?
Within our, so we would, as a county seat, say, we're gonna cooperate. So there's a lot of counties that do. I don't mean it jumps out at me, right? And so we do all of the things that is required. It's very much like what I'm experiencing, which is the fire side of things. How do we reduce the risk, basically? And so that's what we can do, is reduce the risks. A lot of this stuff that I started with, you know, like those are calculated in how they do their formulas. And so I don't want to waste your time by going through, but I was reading one like 5 points for this category, and it's a 5% deduction. And so the max that you can get up to is
So the 70% is some
7.
sort of a point system that
Yeah.
you achieve.
So, yeah, like-
So if you don't score 70%, you'll qualify.
No. I can get us 5 points in this bracket and 5% in that bracket and 10% in this other one.
it tallies up.
Yeah, but you know, LA, a smart city like LA can maybe get to a 70. A rural community, just like ISO, right? If we can get to a 5, 6 in rural America, we're doing pretty good on ISO, insurance rating. And many people are familiar with that. If we can get it reduced 25%, that's, you know, it was worth the work, right? That lady, she just left, but if it went from 2,100 to 1,500, that's a win. I mean, all I can do is put the work in for you guys, and I'll do that. So now that I've heard that, tomorrow I'll make that call, and we'll start it. It could be a year before we get our first 5%, but we'll never get there if we don't start.
So all the insurance in the world isn't going to prevent any flood?
No, we'll never prevent. I mean, like, I could put a dam up there and the dam will fail, right?
Well, if we could, you know, excavate the creek and lower the
But
bottom.
that, it wouldn't,
then it would help.
wouldn't prevent it from happening. The time lapse between, maybe. But I've learned in 22 years of doing professional chaos management, you can never prevent disaster. It's not going to happen. But we can build resiliency, and we can stop 50% of the floods that are going to happen, you know, on an average year.
It sounds like a pretty good program if they're going to agree to, you know, help you raise the foundation on your house. If you can mitigate the effects of the flooding
Right.
by doing steps like that, then it's a win-win for everybody.
Right.
The insurance goes down, your house doesn't get flooded, you're not having to look for a place to live, your furniture's good. I mean, it's just, it all kind of works. And it, you know, it should be a lesson for the planning commission or the building department and the permit issuers, that they better go look at this stuff instead of sitting at their desk writing permits saying, here, go ahead and build a house. You better get your ass down there and take a look at what's going on and see if we should be building.
Yeah.
Like those 3 or 4 houses on Grasser, they should have never issued permits to build those houses. Ever. That
Agreed.
should have been a park.
Our CEO was out there with hiking boots on. I was
You know, it's
smiling. But yeah, a lot of this, in this room, let's collectively, you guys showed up, this is step 1. Let me send you this, please email me, let me get you this link. Do your research. Because if you want to have your foundation elevation, and you want to do that, all I can do is help you. I can't do it for you. I can do the community-wide project planning, the retention base and all that stuff. I can do that work. But for your individual homes, I can't do anything for you, except save your life, which is fine, shelter you.
I came in late, so I apologize if you already said this, but so we can't widen the creek either?
No, so, our permit is very, very restrictive. And I don't have the power, Gary doesn't have the power, the governor wouldn't have the power to say, stop worrying about this species and that tree and all this. That's EPA level. That is low. And so we are not going to do that. Now, I can go in and say, can we look at doing this and then ask for permission? A lot of that is idea storming. I'm one brain. There's 3 brains up here and there's 40 in the room. So let's put our 40 brains together. If you have an idea, call me, email me. I will pitch the idea, but right now, all we can do is take the vegetation out to water level. So if the water was low, those reeds would be about 4 inches lower, If it's higher, it'd be a little taller, but that's what we're limited to right now. Our guys can't even contract to go in there if there's been a 1/4 inch of rain and they leave a mud track. And I'm gonna send that lady, if you wanna see the permit, I'll email it to you. It's the rules we have to abide by.
And then
Who
you
do I
don't
contact?
allow all the fertilizer from the
You get a
golf
card.
course to run in there.
You couldn't even roll out your dam.
It's crazy.
Tiger dam?
It's done. I don't disagree with
There's
you.
nothing allowed
I've
in
been
there.
having this conversation for years, it's just stuff, and it keeps getting worse. They have things to it. Elderberry bushes, elderberry beetles.
Are you talking, so I was in the Army, I know HESCO barriers, those things you fill with sand.
There's nothing allowed there. There's no oxygen in the water. There's no fish, there's no beetles anymore. The fishing birds,
Okay.
like the blue heron, they don't live here anymore because there's no frogs in the creek. They're all dead. There's no turtles anymore.
They can do their work.
So,
Well, there's one big turtle.
We would still be disturbing the soil and the habitat.
I don't disagree with you. I
Thanks, sir.
argued that.
I'm gonna say probably not, but we can ask, right? I don't make the rules, I just have to follow them and get stuff done. So, I think
they.
along 26, a 6-foot wall, would help. And then on the other side, but I have to get permission to even ask if we can build.
Yeah. And then
So I think there's a lot of solutions that
Just so you know more.
Yeah.
Punch up
And so-
everything online.
all that fertilizer that they put on.
I saw some
Runs in there,
As much as-
so it's not natural.
the country, but China rolls out these
Toxic.
fatter things and
Yeah,
fills them with
if we go
concrete,
with
and
the
that's
water,
what
we have
they
to
lay down.
sanitize.
And they can lay miles of
We have
stuff.
to sanitize the equipment
So I don't,
every day.
They don't have the EPA, right? And so, the best I can do is if you've got an idea like that,
Saying earlier this
you know, I'll do
water
the,
was running from their lake.
what about this idea?
Going down.
Can we do it?
It's just
It's a lot
bizarre.
faster and easier on my back.
And it's just beat your head against the wall and trying to get them to.
I'm not as soon as I want to. Go ahead.
What is it that they did on 26? That would put down from.
I know there's a
Motel
sewer
and
pipe
run into
through
town.
that.
There's sewer pipe
There's
and water.
manhole
What hotel?
covers,
Ran
all
some
along.
kind of runoff.
They had to.
The culverts under the road.
Back in the
Replace
Oh,
them.
right there? For the, like for the gym? Yeah, couch, that's a cow chain, so state level. They put 18-inch culverts under the road. They look like they're full already. It's, like, I wasn't here for that, but I just drove the other day, we were kind of laughing, like, that was new, like there's standing water on the side of the road there. So it's not draining all that well.
Great. We're gonna allow them to go on the,
Yeah, I firmly believe controlling the amount of water that goes down that creek is the only
we
solution.
pull a weed out, I'm telling you, we pull a weed out.
You're saying that you're controlling the volume of how fast it goes through.
Yeah, so you put the water that's running fast into a,
Have they agreed to do that?
in theory, back in '05, that was one of the solutions. We have to,
Well,
again, that's what we're,
23 was a different story.
that's my hope is that we will do that.
Now, I
And
will say that the elevation, I had my house built 100 block higher. And that is the reason I'm saying my house is
Hey, thank you all for coming before you come out. Please be in contact with me and let me know what you can do.